Good afternoon. Let's get our seats, please. Are we about ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is David Bauman. I'm Director of Academic Operations, which includes academic advisement, registration, and student records here at St. Scholastica. I'm in my 30th year at Scholastica. Pretty good for a 40-year-old, right? There we go. Got to try, right? Got to try. Welcome to our alumni panel discussion today as part of the Feast of St. Scholastica. Thank you. Shout out to Sister Kathleen Del Monte for organizing this event and future events that are happening next week. As a reminder, Monday, donuts downstairs in the Union, and Monday afternoon at 4:30, Catholic Mass over at the chapel. I hope to see you all there. I don't think the chapel could hold this many, but we'll take all we can get, right? So today, we have some panelists here who are alums and a couple who are still current students who have come back to the college. We will be having a discussion, and this is a discussion. This is involving them and you. There are microphones. There are people here running with microphones later on. We have a chat session set up on Zoom. So everybody, as you're hearing our discussion, think of questions to ask that will aid in that discussion, because we will count on you to have some questions. Okay? So there's our welcome. Mics. We have a couple of mics. We have folks who will be running with them. If you have a question, hike your hand up as high as you can. They will come to you to hand you the mic to do that. Zoom questions will be handled through the chat, and Jessica, if you wouldn't mind voicing those questions to us. If you have a device with you that you're not using for notes or assisted technology, please put it on Do Not Disturb or shut it off so we don't have interruptions. One of those values up on the stage here is respect, right? And it's good to see that respect when you are an audience member, because one day you might be in one of our positions. Wouldn't that be great? Thank you. So I'm going to start our discussion by reading the mission statement for the College of St. Scholastica. Shaped by the Catholic Benedictine heritage, the College of St. Scholastica provides intellectual and moral preparation for responsible living and meaningful work. Catholic Benedictine heritage, responsible living, meaningful work. As you see these values on the stage, how true do those ring to each part of that statement? Catholic Benedictine heritage, responsible living, and meaningful work. Today we'll discuss some of those with our alums as they progress through their undergraduate work here and their life outside of St. Scholastica. Keep that in mind. Okay, introductions. I will start with Amy Leopold. Hi, Amy. This is Amy. She graduated with her undergraduate degree in December of 2021 with a degree in exercise physiology. She enjoyed college so much she returned to the college as a doctor of physical therapy student. She's in her second year here at the college. She has a very huge heart for the geriatric population and is anticipating working with that population after she completes her doctorate degree. And when she's not busy with school, she is a seamstress and has been for about 19 years. A very unique occupation. That's just kind of cool. Welcome, Amy. Jessica Schatz goes by Jess. I know Jess well. She used to work in the registrar's office when she was an undergraduate student here. She graduated in May of 2023 with a bachelor's arts degree in English and communication with concentrations in media studies and a minor in medieval Renaissance studies. Pretty cool. So we could ask you anything about King Arthur, and you've got it?
If it comes up.
If it comes up. All right, great. Currently, Jess works at Lake Superior College as a records specialist, which is kind of cool because she took her experiences from here and got a career job with it, which is very cool. In her pastime, she tries to do the Wordle every day. Congratulations, not an easy task. Her favorite spot at CSS has been the balconies off of Tower Hall on the far eastern or western side here. maybe not so much in the snow, but in the better days. Fourth floor sunrises on the balconies are beautiful. Additionally, a life-altering experience for Jess was completing her resume and cover letter when she was a senior here at Scholastica, because that probably meant you were going on to the real world.
Yes, and just realizing everything I've done on paper looks a lot more impressive than in my head, I guess.
Yeah, the realization that it's there. Yeah. Brandon Vang, welcome. He uses he, him pronouns. Graduated from St. Scholastica in 2018 with a Bachelor of Science degree in secondary education, so history, psychology teacher, high school, right? Currently a graduate student in our Master of Education program here in St. Scholastica, focusing on the cultural responsive pedagogy. Nice mix. It's pretty cool. He works as an academic advisor and career development coordinator for Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science here on campus. And a fun fact about Brandon is that he is a first-generation college student. Actually, all three of our alumni are first-generation college students. Kind of interesting, and it's great. I love it. So at this time, we're going to have a discussion, and I hope you join in with your questions as we go along. Okay? So, first question. Your experience as an undergraduate student here progressed through the years you graduated and moved on. How did these values fit into that progression through your years here at the college and beyond?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I think one of the biggest things with the Benedictine values, love of learning, stewardship, community, respect, hospitality, is that for me, I think I made a mistake my first year. And that mistake was that I did not get involved enough in campus, right? I was not a part of the community, right? And because I was not a part of the community, I didn't necessarily feel a sense of belonging to St. Scholastica, right? That was my mistake, right? So at the end of my first year, I questioned what I really wanted to do, whether or not I wanted to continue on, go somewhere else, or just change my life path, right? I persisted and I kept going on for year two, and that's really when I decided that I wanted to be a part of Scholastica, right? I wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted to be involved. I wanted to do more than just go to Scholastica to get my degree so I can get a job, right? And so I did. I became involved in as many clubs as I can, or as I could, all right? And that really made a difference for me, all right? Once I actually felt like I belonged here and that the professors, I made connections with them and I reached out and I didn't feel like I was just another number, my experience at St. Scholastica skyrocketed, all right? And it might tie back in later if the question is asked, but if I have any advice for you, right, as first-year students, second-year students, whatever, all right, it's to get involved.
I think for me, a love of learning probably has been the value that's kept me going through all of my years at Scholastica and now in my graduate program. I think it's so important to stay curious, even if it's not about things going on at school. I think it's important to be curious about yourself, about each other, about the community, and just keep thriving in the mentality of that you love to learn and you want to keep progressing that knowledge and experiences that you have throughout life. So whether that looks like continuing on to grad school like I did or whatever it might look like for you, I think it's important to stay curious and foster the love of learning no matter what you're doing.
I think for me, stewardship might be the most important in the fact that it kind of encompasses everything, because your time is your biggest resource, and if you don't use that resource well, you're not going to be able to do the things you want to do. So in that, if you have that love of learning, you're going to prioritize that and see that through all the way. And I think exactly staying involved with everything, and that's a huge time management thing, and getting that maximum out of the little time that you have here. And while 4 years seems like a lot, and everybody's told you this already, it's not, but I think just taking care of your time, but also everything around you, because you have an impact no matter how big or small it is.
So getting involved, curiosity, stewardship with your time management, how does all that blend into the whole person that comes out of St. Scholastica?
I think being at Scholastica is really an important place to be because as all my years here, I've come to the realization that Scholastica, unlike a lot of other schools, prioritizes whole person experience, mind, body, total wellness, well-being, and nourishing people to truly be part of the community and beyond when they finish their time at Scholastica. And I think that's something that I value the most out of being a Scholastica alumni, is just knowing that I came from a place that really values people, values kindness, it values forgiveness, it values being a person and being okay with making mistakes and learning and loving to learn and coming out on the other end knowing that you're going to make a difference no matter how big or small.
I think too with the College of St. Scholastica and even just having like a liberal arts education, right? You are a well-rounded person, right? You get your generals done and you get your specific content courses done, right? But with the focus on the values, they're not just values, they're also just life skills that you're going to need to have for when you graduate, right? You need to be stewardly. You need to take care of your time, manage your resources well, right? You need to take care of yourself. When you're going to these different job sites or different places of employment, right, you want to feel like you're a part of the community, but also you want to build into that community, and you want to build a sense of respect with others, and you want to be hospitable, right? As a new grad, it's really scary when you go into a new workplace and you're the youngest person there, and everyone is 20 years older than you, and they have experience, and they know what you're doing, and you're a freshly graduated adult kid, basically, right? I mean, I remember when I graduated, I had to find my own apartment, and that was the first time I had to do that, and I had to drive up to International Falls to interview, and I had to do utilities and water, and it weren't things that I really had to worry about. But, graduating college, going to a new place, right? These aren't just values, they're life skills, all right? If you are well-versed in how to be and do and embody those things, all right, you are going to be 100 times more ready to take on the real world.
I think building off of that life skills idea, like every job that you get is going to implement almost all of these. You're going to have to learn a new skill once you leave Scholastica. You're going to have to be hospitable, and you're going to have to be nice to your coworkers. Yes, you do have to be nice to your coworkers. And respect them. And creating a community outside of Scholastica is going to be a big challenge. That's what it's been for me. But I think it's also one of the most rewarding things you can do as well. So having these support systems for 4 years and just kind of funneling that into being a wholly human being is huge.
Cool. At lunch, we had a wonderful discussion about some things, and we talked about you're a freshman in high school, you're at the bottom of the ladder, right? You're a freshman in college, you're at the bottom of the ladder again, registering last or whatever for courses. And then you hit that professional world, and where are you again? Right at the bottom of the ladder again, right? But you have more skills as you go along. Let's talk about those transitions, college to profession. What does that look like and feel like? How do these inform that? You spoke a little bit about it. Let's expand on that.
I will say, leaving Scholastica and going into the professional world, I definitely hit another W curve, which I thought I was done with that, and we're not. But I think it's definitely finding that community, because I've already built up all these relationships and connections for 4 years, and then I go and, like, my office mate is double my age, but now we talk every day, and it's learning to be, this is the next step, and these are the people I get to be around every day. And it's being hospitable and opening yourself up to those new connections that make the world of difference when you're out there.
I think we also talked a lot about rediscovering who you are, and I think it's important as you're continuing this college journey to remember who you are. It might be easy to forget how to knit after 4 years of just reading textbooks, but you get out there when you're done and all of a sudden you think, okay, home at 4:30, and now what do? I don't have my same friends anymore. I don't have coffee house on Monday nights anymore. I don't have the activities that were just laid at my feet to do, so it's figuring out what am I going to do and being okay with discovering new things, but also making sure that as you're in this time right now, not to forget what you love and what keeps you going. So if that means knitting for a few minutes every day or playing a board game every once in a while, doing stuff that keeps you happy and motivated, and that way when you get out into the professional world, you kind of have a sense of direction a little bit more as to who you are and who you want to be and what your interests are.
And transitions are scary. All right, there's no way around it. You graduate college, and then it's what now? All right, hopefully you have a job lined up, or you get a job pretty soon, right? Because you need to start making money, paying rent, student loans, all that fun stuff. But I think in regards to our values, I think respect is the biggest when it comes to those transition periods. And when I say that, I mean respecting yourself, all right? You spent 4, sometimes more, longer, years in college developing the skills that you need to become successful at what you want to do in life, all right? And so one thing that I know I struggled with when I was a new grad, right, when I started teaching, right, a lot of the kids that I was teaching were around my same age. All the other teachers have been there for 30, 40 years, right? A big question that you might ask yourself is, okay, I'm scared, I'm doing a lot of work here. Do I belong, right? And I think when I say that respect is a big part of this, I think you need to respect yourself, right? Again, you spent your time doing the work, becoming good at what you want to do, right? You have applied for that job. You've gotten accepted at that job, right? You have earned your way into where you are, and I think you need to respect yourself that you have the knowledge and the skills necessary to do what you want to do, all right? So keep believing in yourself, all right? Respect yourself.
And one more note about that. I think once you finish, you just assume that, oh, I'll know everything at that point, or I'll have it all figured out. But let me tell you, you don't. It's easy to forget what you have learned because you just know it, and that's just how it is now. But you get out there, and all of a sudden you're in the clinic, and you think, I guess I know it. And it's easy to question your knowledge and abilities. You just need to have faith in yourself to know that you know what you're doing, because you do.
Absolutely, and then also knowing that you don't know everything. And that, you know what, stepping into this new job, freshly grad, right? But there's still going to be a lot to learn. So also being okay with, I might not do it great the first time around. But you have a good starting point. You're going to keep doing the job. You're going to keep learning, right? You'll get to the point where you feel comfortable eventually.
I think also all of these Benedictine values can apply no matter what your major is, no matter what you're doing after college. It's going to make you a well-rounded person and make you someone people want to be around, which is huge, especially when you're trying to create that community from scratch again.
So we talk about learning, right? That's why folks are here. We like to learn. Tell me about the most impactful learning experience you had here at St. Scholastica to date.
I don't know maybe about impact, but I can say that going into my sophomore year of undergrad, I had to take physics 1 and 2, and I was not looking forward to that. I hated physics in high school. I thought it was the worst thing in the world. It never made any sense. I never felt like I got it or understood it whatsoever. But I decided college is different. I'm a few years older now. Maybe I'll give it a second chance. So I had an open mind going in, which I think helped a lot. But testament to Dr. Raschke, she's awesome. She helped me through it, and she made me realize that, I actually kind of like physics. It's okay. When you have the help and support you need, you can do anything. And it was really powerful to me to realize that if you go in with an open mind, you can do just about anything.
I think that the most impactful learning experience was, I don't remember what year it was. I think it was either my junior or my senior year. But for those of you in here who are in SSS, all right, there's a lot of great opportunities for you that are presented through that, all right? For the men in here, one of those things is the Men of Excellence Conference, all right? So with that, my SSS advisor, Tiff Snyder, SSS is Student Support Services. Awesome. Thank you for that. I hate when people just throw acronyms at me without explaining what they are. Sorry. SSS is Student Support Services. So it's a program for first-generation students, low income, I think, stuff like that, right? There might be some other qualifications. I'm an upward bound. I don't remember the SSS qualifications, right? But one of the things that we were allowed to do is that we got to hop on a plane. We got to fly to Kent State University, right? And at that university, I was able to meet with other people who are like me, first generation, students of color, men who didn't really know if they necessarily belonged and were worthy of doing what we were trying to do. And I think really at that conference, I had a chance to connect with so many people, speak with so many professors and other people like me, who really just made me see that I do belong, I can do it, all right, and that I am worthy of being here.
I think an impactful learning experience I had, I think, was just getting to the fact that I had a good relationship with all my high school teachers, and that's 90% of because I came from a small school. So I got to know everybody really well because, I mean, you know everybody in a small town. That's how it happens. And that's kind of the same thing here, but in the best sense, where I was able to go to each professor's office hours and really get to know them, and then they could be a support system for when I really need help on this assignment, and I'm no longer scared to ask for that help. And it breaks down that barrier that it's okay to not know everything because somebody else can probably give you the answer.
Okay, any questions at this point? Let's take a pause for questions. Of course I saw you coming down, John.
So, adulting has become a verb, and I love the fact that it's not just a noun, it's a verb too. How did you transition from being a student in an environment where all of these things were built in to being a leader within the student population, if you were with your peer groups, into working or going to school and living these without someone structuring it for you? How does that transition go? Please.
I think it's important to make friends with different personality types for that. I truly do, because you need an introvert and you need an extrovert, because the extrovert's going to pull the introvert out of the house, and the introvert's going to tell the extrovert that let's just stay in. And that's great to have both, because otherwise you're going to burn yourself out. So for me, I am very type A. I am the planner. I am the doer. So usually I was the one organizing things. So for me, I just copy-pasted that over into some new friends that I've made along the way, and it's helpful to foster those skills and abilities, but also realizing that it's good to make friends with different people so that you can get a well-rounded friendship experience and just make sure that you're staying to the level of involvement that you'd like to be. If you get out in the world and you think, well, so much for friends, then figure it out. Figure out what kind of friends you want to have. Do you want to have bowling friends, or do you want to have caribou in the afternoon kind of friends? You know, what do you want? What kind of friends do you want? And go find them.
I think speaking to that level of involvement, I went from being involved a lot, and I would leave my apartment at 7:45, and I probably wouldn't get back to it until 8 at night because I was doing club things, I was in classes, I was doing leadership things on campus, and then as soon as I graduated, I got to my job, and I show up at 8, and I'm out at 4:30, and I get to go home, and I had to relearn how to do all my hobbies. So I finally got to pick up books that have been on my to-be read list for way too long. Got back into knitting and a bunch of other stuff, but also just realizing who I wanted to use my time with and what relationships I wanted to foster and keep going after. How easy is it to just run into somebody in the hallway after you've seen them for 4 years and be able to strike up a conversation? But reaching out when you know your schedules have changed, you're busy people, and just prioritizing that is huge.
I also think maybe these days we have an advantage just because of social media. I made a lot of friends with upperclassmen when I was a freshman, and I'm still friends with them because we talk all the time. So I think it's easier to stay in touch with everyone.
I think one thing with the transition from being an undergrad to either graduate school or going to the workforce is that it's scary to not know what's going to happen. And not knowing that knowing that you don't necessarily have that network of support that you used to in college or high school. And so I think the big thing for me, and I was very fortunate, very privileged that I had my parents and my family to help me move to a different town, help advise me on how to find different places to live, leasing, rent, utilities, stuff like that. But I think one of the biggest things that you can do to help yourself is when it gets later in your undergrad, right, and you're looking at moving away or potentially starting new things, is really building a network that you can reach out to when you start somewhere new, right? Whether or not that is your professors, your content professors specifically, how do I go about doing these things in education, right? How do I go about learning how to get my relicensure or to get my master's degree, or whether or not it's going to career services and asking them, how do I buy a car and make car payments? How do I take out loans from the bank? How do I rent a house, and what things do I need to know? Just do yourself a favor and get prepared early to be ready for when you're adult. And also just knowing that it's okay not to know everything and to be scared, because that's normal.
Other questions? No one. Okay, I have more. David? Okay. So sometimes when we're going through college, we have chaotic and crazy times. Maybe in life, maybe in college, maybe in our living situation. How do you get through those?
I think maybe before we answer that question, can we all just do something together? I think we're maybe about a half hour in. If we could all just like stand up for a second and give her a stretch, maybe.
Okay. How did you persist through a crazy or chaotic time in your life or in your academics? It is a difficult question.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Yep. How did you persist through a crazy or chaotic time in your personal life, your living situation with another college roommate per se, or your academics?
I think, especially for this, the types of people they often pick for the alumni panel, you kind of think, okay, these guys are the ones who just kind of had a great college experience and they just have it all figured out and all that. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not always going to be perfect, especially roommates. I was never best friends with my roommates. We existed in the same room together, and that was maybe about it. You know, we got along fine, but it's okay to not be best friends, and it's okay to not love all your classes, and it's okay to be frustrated, and it's okay to feel down, because we're humans. That's how we're going to feel sometimes, and it's hard to accept that because you want to do all the right things, and you're thinking, okay, I'm in my major program, or I'm applying for this, and I'm supposed to feel great, and I'm supposed to feel like I have it all together by now, and you just don't, and that's okay. That's how it felt and how it still feels to be in grad school, too. It's tricky. You just got to remember, at the end of the day, you do love what you do, but every other day you're kind of thinking there, why am I here again? And then you have to just sit and think for a minute about why you're here and why you love what you're doing and what are some things that you do love to do. Finding the positives out of the negatives, I think, is important.
I think the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is just build that support network and then rely on them. All right? So probably a lot of us here, right, are fiercely independent, where we don't want to maybe admit that we make mistakes, that we failed, and we try to keep that to ourselves. All right? I know when I was a student here, all right, I started out as an ex-phys major because I was an athlete growing up, and that's what I wanted to do, right? I want to be a physical therapist. Lo and behold, I was not a great student my first year. I'm going to tell you to not do this, which is do not sit in the back of the science lecture on your tablet playing games. That's not how you pass classes. That's how you get a C- in biology and change your major. All right? And for me, I was super ashamed of that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Scholastica, and I just got a C-, and I don't know what to do now. Do I just change everything, and do I retake the class? And I think a big thing for me that I wish I would have done is I wish I would have relied on more people. I wish I would have gone to my parents and talked to them. I wish I would have gone to my friends and talked to them. And I wish I would have gone to just someone and talked to them and relied on them and asked them to give me advice instead of me just holding it all in, trying to deal with that. All right? I think the best thing that you can do when you're in a time of need is rely on those who support you, right? Whether or not that is your friends, your parents, your loved ones, your professors, right? As a former teacher, I'm going to say that teachers are there to make you successful, right? They want the best for you. They don't want you to fail, right? Now, failing can also be a great learning opportunity, and it was a great moment for me to be a kick in the butt saying, hey, I actually really need to try, and I need to do what I'm supposed to do, right? But just my advice, when you're in a time of need, don't be afraid to ask for help.
I think a weird struggle time I had was learning how to be a good student as a freshman, and I think I was just like, high school was not easy per se for me, but it wasn't exactly that much of a challenge. So by the time I got to freshman year, it was eye-opening that I have to get so much done, and I was up until 3 a.m. doing like a one-page paper, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's single-spaced, it's a lot of pressure. So in those instances, I learned that you just have to do the best you can, and if that's not enough, there's enough grace in this college that you can move forward with what you did, so.
Question.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to respond to one thing. As a professor, we love hearing from students after they graduate. So we definitely want you to send us an email and say how you're doing or ask us questions, because we consider that still part of our jobs, and we love the relationships that we have with you, and we want to hear those things. So, yes. This is a question that came from one of my students, but also I was wondering this after I watched your intro videos, which is, college is really busy for many students, but after you graduate is really busy in a very different way. And we're wondering, how do you balance like grad school and your seamstress job? And how do you figure out what it is that you want? You all talked a little bit about stewardship of time, but how do you figure out how to steward your time and what kinds of things you want to be spending that time on?
For me, this is just the pinnacle of the fulcrum of all of that was after I finished undergrad, then to grad school. In undergrad, my now husband and I did long distance all 4 years. That worked for us. We're married now, so for those in a long distance relationship, hold on, you can do it. So I was kind of by myself for most of undergrad. My boyfriend was in a different state. That was fine. We made it work just fine, but in the meanwhile, I had my few friends, and that was it. I went to college to study, and that was about it. I was kind of a boring student. But because of that, I was so used to me time. I had every day to myself where I knew how to organize my plan. I knew what classes I had, what I wanted to do, and it was very much me. That was it. Then I graduated. And all of a sudden, now I'm in grad school, I'm married, I have a house, and I'm starting a brand new academic program. And I needed to do a major readjustment of my life and my priorities and my time. Someone once told me that you always have time for your priorities. And I think that's very true. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. How are you going to fill it? It took a lot of time and practice, and I'm going to say practice, for me to figure out how to honor my spouse and be there for him while also studying and then trying to work as much as I can. I learned from undergrad that I can balance a 5-hour work week. I can work for 5 hours, and that's about all I got. And that was how I wanted it to be. That was my priority, was school at that point. Your priority might be work, because it has to be, and that's okay. But for me, that's what I even do now. It's a very flexible job. You can sew anytime, which is what I love about it. And I think this is also a little bunny rabbit trail, but I'll come back to the main point here. People always ask me, well, aren't you going to go into like fashion or seamstress work? And it's like, no, I want to have hobbies too. So it's important to have hobbies, but it's also important to have a career that you're going to enjoy. So for me, physical therapy is where I'm supposed to be. I can sew anytime. That's a hobby kind of job for me. So it's important to pick a career that you're going to love, but still holding on to your true enjoyments. Let them be enjoyments, because if you were to get burned out on your hobbies, that would be a bad day. But back to the main point, it's really important to be able to prioritize the things in your life. Family is going to be one of those things that never goes away. I'm going to be married to my husband until I die. And college is, 7 years, I guess, for me type of thing. So it's important. It's really important because it's setting me up for my career. But you need to be there for the people who are always going to be there more. And one of my classmates has been married for a long time, and she's got kids and everything. And I learned from her that it's really okay to spend time with your family, because you don't study one class one day because you want to go support your friend or your husband or your kids' play or whatever it might be. People are the things that you need to make sure that you're making time for, because they're going to be the parts that are going to be there to support you when you need it. So you need to be there for them too. So I think figuring out your priorities, making sure that you're putting your ducks in the right lines, and figuring it out from there. And forgiveness, I think, is key with that. It's patience too, and it all works out. It does.
I think one thing with stewardship and learning how to manage your time and where you put your time and effort and how you spend it is that realistically, right, you might not be great at time management, right? You might try to do either too much or too little, and realistically, you're going to find that out, right? You're going to figure out, if I don't do this tonight, it's just going to add on tomorrow morning, so maybe I need to do some of that prep work tonight or at some other point, right? But don't be afraid to try new things when you graduate, and don't be afraid to fail, because again, like, failing is one of those things that I think that you need to go through, right? You need to fail in order to know what you can and can't do and what your boundaries are and what your limits are.
Question?
My name is Erin, and I am also a first-generation student. I was just wondering what you kind of did to take that first step without having that advice and like connections to your parents that might not have been going to school as well.
I guess I wouldn't know any better is kind of the answer I have. I was oldest in my family, first-gen college student. My parents assumed that if you got really good grades in high school, you get a full ride to college, and it's not how that works a lot of times. So it was just kind of one of those learning curves, and I guess I don't know any different. I was the first-gen college student, so I paved my own way. We figured it out step by step and just made sure we had the people around us that did know what was going on, and I was thankful that the college was really great about making sure that it was pretty clear what you need to do and when. So I think just making sure that you're asking the right questions to the people around you is essentially how it went for me anyway.
My first job when I got here was the second week of freshman year, and I started working at the one-stop office when it was here. And I think that's what really helped set the pace, because I was able to see all the inner workings, and I got to know exactly what needs to be done, when do bills get sent out, financial aid, and I really got more than I needed to in-depth look at all of that. But either way, utilizing these resources and understanding like what needs to be done ahead of time was a huge thing. There was a checklist on the student page about what needs to get done, and I think familiarizing yourself with the way a college operates kind of helped me a lot. So it's not going to work for everybody because not everybody can work in the registrar's office or financial aid or something, but I think that was like the best thing I could have done.
So as a high school student trying to take the first step, I was very fortunate where, yes, my mom, my dad did not go to college, right? My sister, who was 7 years older, did, and so she was kind of the first one who went through it all. With that being said, I think the most important thing you can do as a high school student is figuring out what your resources are, whether or not it's speaking to your high school counselors, your teachers, right? Because your teachers did go to a 4-year, right? That's why they're teaching. Utilizing your resources in high school. And as far as college goes, right? Again, the first step is to, I believe, reach out to your faculty advisor, general advisor, figuring out what steps I need to take, right? And also figuring out what supports are offered at that university, right? Do they have student support services? Do they have Trio McNairs, right? Is there someone that I can talk to who is going to help me figure these things out? Again, my advice, don't, again, hold it all to yourself. Try to do everything yourself because that's how you were raised, was to go to school, get good grades, and that's that, right? Really feel free to lean on people to help you.
Thank you. Questions?
Hi, my name is Ruby Mua. I'm a biology major, and my question for all of you is, how did you keep yourself grounded as a student here while trying to find your sense of self and identity through here, while also trying to live as your most authentic self?
I think staying involved with the things that you're interested in is going to be a huge thing. So I was a part of music in my high school, so I did choir and I joined a band here when I was here, and I liked being sporty, I guess, and I didn't want to do anything super competitive, so I joined rugby instead. Best decision of my college career. But I think it's just knowing that you can change a lot in these 4 years, but also you can hold true to the things that you grew up with and like the things that you're used to as well.
Yeah, ditto to that. I knew when I walked through these doors that I wanted to be a hockey cheerleader. That was something I had never done, but I heard that Scholastica had them, so I thought, yes, that's going to be me, so I sought it out and did it. I also knew that I wanted to be a part of campus ministry. Hello to Jessica. And so I sought that out, and I think it's just making sure that you're staying true to your interests, and there's, I think, just about a group on campus for everybody, if not even 2 or 3. So if it doesn't exist, start it. It's great opportunity, because more than likely, if you're wanting it, someone else likely does too. So just finding ways to put your passions into actions in a new way.
Yeah, absolutely continue what you love doing from high school into college, right? If you love playing an instrument, right, join the band, steel drum band. If you love singing, right, join the choir. Really continue those interests from high school and college to keep you at least going from that, right? As far as finding your true authentic self goes, I think what you need to realize is that in the process of finding your true self, right, you might end up questioning a lot of the values that you had beforehand. And I think that's okay, right? Because realistically, people change when they go to college. People change throughout their lives, and that's going to happen. So just knowing that it's okay for you to challenge your own beliefs, right, to be uncomfortable, and to grow as a human being.
You guys brought up that how, like, creating those connections and networking is super important as you make that transition. Like, what is your advice for us to make those connections?
So my advice, making connections, right, and networking, that was the question? Okay, yeah. So I would say, again, be involved, right? Whether or not that's clubs, reaching out to your classmates, right? Even going to job fairs, really relying on the Career Services Department to potentially find you internships or to help you even create awareness of just what is going around. I would say with me, right, when I went to Scholastica, none of my friends from high school came with me, right? I had to start off new. And so I'm going to say most of my good friends that I still have today, trying to do the math in my head, 8 years or 6 years or so after graduating from college are still my college friends, right? Because I joined the ASL and Deaf Culture Club, right? I'm still very close with them. Because I joined choir, I'm still very close with them, right? So I would say as far as friend networking goes, right, don't be afraid to join the clubs. Don't be afraid to get involved, right, putting yourself out there. As far as like career networking goes, really rely on career services to help you with that.
Hi, my name is Claire, and my question for you is how often do you apply the Benedictine values to your everyday careers?
So personally for me, I don't intentionally focus on putting the Benedictine values into my work, right? I think that as a student of Scholastica, as a good human being, they're byproducts of just doing what you do, right? So with my job, I help first-generation, low-income kids in high school go to college, right? So as a part of that, right, I have to build a sense of community between myself and the students and the schools within I work, right? I have to be hospitable. I have to be open. I have to be helpful and help them, right, find their true selves, right? I also have to instill the love of learning into them, right? These are kids who have big aspirations. They want to do a bunch of things in life, right? So I would say as long as you are doing what you are supposed to be doing as a student at Scholastica, when you go into the career workforce, right, you're going to end up doing those things naturally.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard to answer that question because I could say, yeah, I use all of these values every single day, but I don't think about them consciously every day because it's just embedded into like everything I do. I'm in a new position, I haven't even been there a year yet, so I love to learn something new every day. Not every day, some days learning that is not fun, but you know, you got to show up to work and you're going to learn something new, and that's the way it is. And like I said earlier, you're going to respect your coworkers. Like, it's a different environment, but you just do all of these things every day, and it's second nature.
I think you get to choose how you want to apply these values, because these values can either happen to you or they can happen through you. So are you going to be a part of the community at your workplace, or are you going to let the community at the workplace happen to you? Are you going to be front and center being respectful and hospitable to everyone, or are you going to wait for someone else to do it? I think it really just depends on how much you want to apply them, or are you just going to kind of let them bulldoze you over, and are you going to contribute or not? I think it's pretty easy to contribute, though.
Thank you for those questions, audience. As we think about St. Scholastica and we think about the students here and staff and faculty, we all come from different areas of the state, maybe different areas of the world, different areas of the nation. How would each of you describe St. Scholastica to someone who doesn't know St. Scholastica?
I've thought about this question for a while. I think, so heads up, we got questions beforehand that we were able to prep for. All right, and this was the question that I kind of struggled with the most, is how do I describe Scholastica? I'm a very objective person, so my first thought is like, all right, well, there's great brick outside, and it kind of looks like there's 2 towers, and there's a lot of steps, and it's an older building, right? And upon thinking about it, yeah, that's all true. I'm going to say it's going to sound cliche. It's kind of like Hogwarts. It's kind of like the Harry Potter movies, all right, in the aspect that, you know, sometimes there's cliques. That happens, right, the houses, right, and you kind of filter into where you belong, your programs, right? You're going to meet people that you absolutely love at Scholastica, and those friendships at Scholastica are going to carry with you throughout life. You're also going to meet people who you don't necessarily get along with, right? But with Scholastica's teachings and respect, right, I might not get along with that person, but I'm going to respect that person for who they are. So if I had to be like, what is Scholastica like to students or whoever, I would say, yeah, it is literally Hogwarts. Like, in your own mind, you probably are Harry Potter or Hermione Granger going through life and making friendships and making some enemies sometimes, right? But it's a school, right? It's a school, and the professors there are dedicated to helping you learn, right? Because they want the best for you.
I think the first word that came to my mind was honestly home, which is super cheesy. But I toured a couple different colleges before coming here, as I'm sure many of you did as well. And there was something about pulling up to the Mitchell parking lot, very first day of, I think it was the nursing program orientation day, just kind of an introduction. I stepped out of the car and put one foot on the blacktop, and I thought, yeah, this is where I belong. So I think it's kind of an almost intrinsic feeling that we get here as well. And I hope that's something that you all feel as well. It's cheesy, but it might be a little bit true. And I agree with everything Brandon says. I also think it's home because just like what Brandon was saying, you don't always get along with everyone at home either, but you still respect each other and you still have a community together and you still want to be there for each other too. So it's home.
I also took a lot of time thinking about this one, and I finally kind of thought about our campus is more vertical than it is horizontal, where you've got to hike up to the 4th floor or all the way down to science 1st floor. So instead of sprawling miles upon miles, like at the U of M or something like that, you just have to go up and down the stairs, and I kind of miss the stairs. I didn't think I'd actually say that, but it's better than running across campus for a meeting that I have now, so.
Question.
Are there any steps you guys might have taken to pay off debt you've accumulated going here?
Yeah, can we repeat the question?
Could you repeat that, please?
Have you guys taken any steps to pay off debt you might have gotten going here?
Paying off debt.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go into some financial advice. When you get a job, all right, if your place of employment gives you retirement benefits and options, take those, all right? Put as much money as you can into retirement, all right? That's what you're going to want to do first. Roth IRA, 403B, 401K, right? Retirement money first. After that, all right, yes, debt is a really real, that's not a great saying, situation, all right? Now, I'm going to say, for me, when I began teaching, I think one of the things that they told me was that, you know, really rely on the, I don't know if this is going to sound weird, the government, right? As a teacher or as someone who's working for a nonprofit, right, and you are looking at your loan servicing and you're looking at the FSA stuff, right, really look into how you can get your loans forgiven. I think that's the biggest thing that I was doing when I was a new grad. Okay, so if I teach for 5 years, I can get this amount of money forgiven. If I'm a nonprofit employee and I work for 10 years, I can get this amount of money forgiven, right? Because realistically, you're coming out of college with some debt, whether or not it's a little bit or a lot, all right? You might be making the minimum payments, all right? I would say if you have the means to pay it off with whatever job you get, do it as quickly as possible, all right? Skimp on some other things so you can pay off your debt, get the interest down, right? But if you're working in a job that allows you to apply for loan forgiveness, right, that is what I would focus on.
Yeah, I agree with the nonprofit type deal. Same thing in the medical field as well, at least for physical therapy. There are options out there. Work for 10 years, your loans get taken away. But also knowing that if you get out there in the world, you can get a good paying job. You could work anywhere you wanted to and just work hard at it for a few years. And maybe that means you make minimum payments every day for 30-some years, but you know, that's okay. As long as you are being a good steward of your value of the year, of your time and resources that you're given, I think you'll be successful.
I would say also check in to see if wherever you end up has opportunities that they will pay off some of your loans. Because some employers they'll say that if you stay here for 2 years, we will contribute $3,000 towards paying off your student loans.
I think also some people shy away from working in college if they think they really need to focus on school. But for me, I think that was really what helped my time management because I had less free time to manage when it was all booked up with working or school or activities and stuff. So while it's not obviously going to just erase any debt or get your loans taken care of right away, I think just building up a little cushion while you're here in a safe, growing environment, as I like to consider college, I think it's not a bad idea to, if you have the means and you have the time, to consider on-campus employment was probably super beneficial for me because it's super flexible with my schedule. I was able to work multiple jobs without conflicting with each other, so.
I also would like to add that I think you're very wise for already starting to think about these things, and that I know for a fact that there are kind, good people in this campus who would absolutely love to sit down with you and plan out your financial future. If you're concerned about debt in the future or how you're going to manage your finances in the meanwhile even, there are so many kind people that would love to help you through that process and can help you plan your 10-year plan or your 20-year plan or your tomorrow plan. You know, it's really great to take advantage of this, the hospitality of our campus.
And I think, too, with just stuff that you can do in college is really just understanding how your loans work, right? How you're, like, subsidized versus unsubsidized, right? Federal versus private, just understanding how your loans work. Does the interest build up when you're in college? Does it not, right? And then really only taking out as much as you really need.
Very sage advice. Thank you. Any questions more from the audience at this point? Okay, I do have another question. Hopefully we all have role models in our lives, right? People we aspire to for their qualities and their values, etc. Tell me something about your role model or role models in your lives.
Also cliche, but I'm going to say my dad. So just for some background history, right? So my dad is from Laos, all right? He was a refugee during the Vietnam War, and he lived in the camps in Laos, and he had to cross the Mekong River, and he had a tough childhood, all right? And so he eventually immigrated to the United States, and he immigrated, and it was a tough life for him living in Minneapolis, St. Paul, as a person who doesn't know English, doesn't know the cultural norms, really only knows what it's like to live in war. And he was able to make sure his priorities were to be successful for himself and his family, all right? So when he and my mother had my sister, right, he did what he had to do to get money for the family, right? Paying rent, working as a bus driver to make ends meet, right? Going to get his AA so that he could be a police officer, so that he could provide for his family, knowing that a lot of these things that he's doing might have been a little bit detrimental to his personal, physical, and mental health. But I really idolize him, and he's my role model because he did what he had to do to make sure that me, my brother, and my sister were well taken care of.
I think one role model I have is, it's hard to pick one. You know, I've got a lot of great family members who are there to support me, but I will say my uncle Jason is probably right up there. We have the same birthday, and ironically, we're very similar people. We're both communication majors. We were both percussionists. It might have been fate, I don't know, but whenever I kind of get in a sticky spot, he's always someone I can turn to and just kind of talk myself through it, because it's like talking to an older and wiser version of myself. Although I might be funnier, don't tell him that. So, yeah.
I still don't have a good answer to this question. And I think that's okay. What comes first to my head is my grandma. Sounds like all of us have family members as role models, which I think is pretty common. We look up to the people in our life that are around us most often for a reason. I think we often pick role models based on the qualities and attributes that we like about them, but I think it's also important to remember that even our role models make mistakes, and so will we.
I liked your idea earlier, Amy, of a stretch break. Let's take another one because we are another half hour in, so get up and stretch and come back in a moment. Okay, let's come back. Okay, now that you had a moment, any questions from the audience at this point? Anything on chat, Jessica? Okay, thank you. All right, at lunch, the four of us, well, the three of you actually, I didn't do much, had a lively discussion about that next value. What is that next value? What value would you add to these as you go through life that you could share? There were quite a few different ideas that hit me right in the heart. Share.
Brandon's idea, I think, is
Yeah.
the best.
All right, so how the conversation went down is that I, first off, started being like, oh, well, I think resilience is probably what I would say, because in college, right, in school and in life, you need to have resilience, you need to have grit, you need to be able to rebound when you fail. And that's kind of where I started focusing on the failing part, right? In life, you're gonna fail. It's gonna happen. Right? And if you haven't failed yet, it's gonna happen. All right, you're gonna fail, and that's okay, right? It's okay to fail. But when you do fail, I think the biggest thing that you can do is forgive yourself, right? So I then changed my answer to, right, forgiveness is the next value that I would add, right? Number one, forgiveness of yourself, right? If you made a mistake, if you failed, if you didn't do as well as you thought you were going to do, if something just happened and you think you failed, to forgive yourself. Right? That's the biggest thing I think you can do for yourself, is to forgive yourself. Right? And then secondarily, yeah, forgive others, right? Because if you don't, right, if you do hold that hatred in your heart, right, that is going to drag you down, right? That's going to make you into a negative Nancy, a negative person, all right? So forgiveness. Forgive yourself, right, for the things that you do that you think you failed yourself on, and then just try your best to forgive others as hard as it can be sometimes.
That pretty much blew my answer out of the water. We all kind of decided that forgiveness is what we agreed upon. But my first thought was service when I thought up that list, because we have community, we have hospitality, and there are definitely aspects of service to those elements. But service is definitely a separate entity. So I thought service would be a nice embellishment, but I think it pales in comparison to forgiveness.
I also went along the resilience, persistence track originally, and then it kind of led into morphing with service a little bit about just being involved and giving your time, which is the most valued resource, into the things that you care about. So, but forgiveness was the best option. Yeah.
Sign of hands for forgiveness as another value. I can't see hands. Let's see some hands. Let's see hands. All right. Thanks. Yeah. How do you think it would fit up here well? Yes? Okay. Brandon's changing St. Scholastica. Excellent. Good. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay. Anything else to share?
Does anyone else have an idea of what you think the next value should be? Just out of curiosity, if anyone had a burning.
I think the only thing I want to reinforce is to put yourself out there, right? As students at Scholastica or wherever as a college student, all right? Try to find a place where you belong, all right? Whether or not that's in a club, that's with a friend group, that's with the professors that you make relationships with, right? Find a place where you belong, right? Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. It's going to be really hard, right? Because it's uncomfortable, all right? But with networking and creating relationships and friendships, all right, you're going to do those things by putting yourself out there, all right? And sometimes when you put yourself out there, you might fail, right? And then just remembering that it's okay to fail, right? It's okay to forgive yourself, all right? And then move on, all right? But put yourself out there, all right? Try your best to, be your best authentic self.
This isn't super heavy, but you should find a favorite place on campus if you haven't already. I'm not kidding. If you go out on those balconies in the springtime, the best studying gets done out there. And the fresh air, it's good for your brain. Science says so. And it's just a great spot. Otherwise, some people are library people. The third floor freaks me out because being that silent up there is kind of scary for me. But if it works for you, it works for you. Also getting to know campus is super fun. Like, there's a staircase from the ground floor to the first floor right by the elevator that only has 12 stairs. So if you're saving on how many steps you want to do a day, there's only 12 there, so.
So as we bring our event to a close here, I know we didn't go the full time. I want to reiterate or reread the mission statement that we started with, right? Shaped by the Catholic Benedictine heritage, the College of St. Scholastica provides intellectual and moral preparation for responsible living and meaningful work. I hope through today's discussion, you learned more about how those three factors fit into your life here as a person and how they will fit into your life once you're not a St. Scholastica student, but a St. Scholastica alum. And hopefully we'll see some of you here on stage during a future alumni panel discussion. A reminder on Monday, donuts downstairs in the hallway, right, as you come in, and then Catholic Mass at 4:30 at the chapel. Thank you for joining us today, and a round of applause for our alums.